instructions. And so we'll get started with the interpretation instructions, and then we'll just be on the lookout for folks that are unable, or hopefully they can indicate. Maybe I can pause between agenda items to make sure any folks that join us after we give these instructions are able to join the proper channel. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Tanya to give instructions.
Thank you, Jessica. Hello, everyone. This is just a reminder of the interpretation instructions, just in case you don't know how to access them. And we remind you, if you're a monolingual English speaker, please select the English channel. That way you can hear the interpretation from Spanish into English. If you're joining with a computer, you will see a glove at the bottom of your screen. Click on the glove and select English. If you're joining with a cell phone or a tablet, you need to tap your screen, find the three dots at the bottom, select language interpretation, select English, and then select done. Now I'm going to give my instructions in Spanish. Buenas tardes a todos. Este es un recordatorio de que tenemos interpretación simultánea al español. En caso de que usted no sepa cómo accesar a la interpretación, le vamos a dar las instrucciones una vez más. Si usted ingresó con una computadora, en la parte de abajo de su pantalla va a ver el icono de un mundo. Selecciónelo y seleccione el canal de español. Si usted ingresó con un teléfono móvil o una tableta, va a tocar su pantalla, va a haber tres puntitos en la parte de abajo, seleccione donde dice interpretación de idioma, seleccione español y por último el botón que diga done, listo o finalizado, y también los invitamos a seleccionar la parte que dice silenciar el audio original para que solo escuche una voz a la vez. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much and welcome everyone. This is our 5th Pesticide Subcommittee meeting for the Arvin Lamont Community Steering Committee. I want to welcome you all and thank you all for being here. I'm going to start by just sharing with you the agenda for today's meeting, and then we can go from there. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully everyone is able to see what I'm sharing. So today we just kicked off the meeting. I'm going to go ahead and just for the sake of letting you all know, I'll kind of run down the agencies and who's all here. You're going to hear from a few folks today, a few different folks from a few different agencies, and just remind you all again that we're just so grateful that this is certainly an interagency collaborative type of meeting. So just grateful for you all to be here. We're also going to go over the pesticide commitment tracker. So that's the tracker that basically we created out of the Community Emissions Reduction Program, or CERP, that you all created, just so that we're holding ourselves, the district, and DPR and all the different agencies involved accountable to you all as to how we're actually addressing the commitments in the CERP. So we'll briefly review that, which will include kind of all the topics that we've done recently during these subcommittee meetings. Then we'll go to the main topic for today, which is about pesticide enforcement efforts. We're going to hear directly from the Kern County Agricultural Commissioner's Office, as well as from Department of Pesticide Regulation. And then finally, sometimes we've finished early, but if we run up to time, we definitely want to keep space at the end for open floor to talk about any next steps from any thing that we discussed today. And then also remind you that we have been meeting every other month. And so we do have a meeting in July. And we can talk a little bit in a moment here about what those topics would be, but also want to hear from you all on what next steps should be for all of us. So with that, I'm going to briefly stop sharing my screen. And just let you all know that we did send out all of the materials that we had ahead of time, but we have even more materials and just other information that we want to share with you today. So we will be sending anything that you see today that you didn't receive. If you typically receive hard copies, we're going to resend additional copies of some additional information from today's meeting to you all. We have everything posted to our website, and I'll have Eric drop in the website link, which has the subcommittee page and all of the past meetings and recordings. And then, as you saw, we are recording today's meeting. So if you feel like there's someone who's not here today that would really benefit from hearing what is going on, then definitely please feel free to direct them to that recording. We record in both English and in Spanish. And then finally, I'm not sure, I haven't scanned the full list. I haven't seen anyone so far, but I wanted to let you know that one of the commitments that we had to you all and to Shafter was for anything that seemed like it was not necessarily the whole topic was just about Arvin, but maybe it was broader. We did invite the Shafter Community Steering Committee to this meeting as well. So hopefully, as folks find time and are able to log into today's meeting, we can have folks from the Shafter Committee join us this afternoon. With that, I just wanted to let you know, as you can see on your screen, we do have the Kern County Agricultural Commissioner here and members from his office. We have the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment here. We have the California Air Resources Board here. We have several folks from the Department of Pesticide Regulation. We of course have the district, and then a lot of other just support staff, your facilitators, and of course, residents and community members alike. So definitely so grateful to you all, and of course to our amazing interpretation team for making today's meeting happen. And grateful, of course, to the direction that we get from our co-leads, and both of whom are on here, and that's Bianca Santoyo and Cesar Aguirre. So with that, maybe I'll pause and see if our co-leads had any thoughts or questions or comments, or anyone really. I'll open it up to anyone before we get started on reviewing kind of the commitments, where we stand, and then moving on with our main topic.
Nothing for me. Thank you for the space, and thank you for everyone for joining.
Thank you.
I wanted to second that with Cesar, that I appreciate the space that the Air District gives us in having these subcommittees. I know these are topics that are important, and addressing them in detail gives us a clarity that there's a work together as a collaboration between local to state to the regional office. So I appreciate all the work that you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca, and thank you, Cesar. As always, feel free to raise your hand and let us know if you have any comments or questions, or of course the chat is open and you'll start to see folks posting things in the chat, and we'll happily address them then. All right, with that, I'm going to go on to our our schedule and our pesticide commitment tracker. We had been doing this at the end, but we felt like it was important to remind you how we got to today's meeting. And so we're going to share that really briefly right now. This is also posted on the website, so you can feel free to check it anytime before the next meeting. So this is a snapshot of sort of our calendar of what we've done just in 2023. As a reminder, this is our 5th meeting. So we actually had 2 meetings just last year. We did talk about some of these topics that you see here in January and March. Just because they're grayed out doesn't mean we won't ever talk about them again. That's just indicating that we have those initial discussions. Today is our May meeting, and the main topic is pesticide enforcement. We'll wrap up the meeting talking about the potential for the topics for the July meeting, which right now has just updates on the statewide mitigation regulation efforts and other subcommittee interests, meaning we want to share some space or save some space for you all to help us guide what that meeting agenda will look like. So with that, I just wanted to walk you through. I know this is a lot, so I'm just going to be very high level. Like I said, we've been sending these out and posting them. And the main thing I just want you to know is all of this is in the SERP. And this is a tracker we've been using to talk about or to identify whether we've completed or at least started the process for each one of these topics. I'm going to go just right now really quickly to, and I'll pause really briefly at each one of these maybe. The first one is the topics that we talked about the past few meetings, which is identifying pesticide uses and starting the process to figure out how to monitor. That's where this main topic here, this was the topic of our last meeting, and we will certainly hear more updates as we move forward on this topic. The reason it's not marked off is because we are kind of in the process of working with you all on finalizing those plans. And so I just wanted to be transparent and let you know where we were. This was talking about statewide notification. We will continue to have DPR update everyone on what that process is and what we need to move that forward. And if there are any questions on this, I think the space at the end of the meeting with open floor would be a great place to ask them. And this is kind of, these are two of the same. I think this was just a hangover from the other piece. And sustainable pest management is something we might want to talk about in July, and that's something that we proposed to put on the agenda, which is why we indicated it here. And then finally, to get to talking about what we want to talk about today is addressing clear steps on how to report illegal application of pesticides. Actually happened a few meetings ago, but there's follow-up at today's meeting based on comments we've heard from you all regarding violations and reports, anything that the Kern County Agricultural Commissioner or DPR has seen within your community, a discussion of how each of these agencies handles illegal application, as well as an engagement opportunity, which is today's meeting, on providing recommendations or asking any questions about the current enforcement mechanisms. I'm going to stop sharing and see if there are no other questions. I know that folks are really eager to get to today's main topic, but I definitely want to pause and see if there's any questions first. Awesome. Well, again, if something occurs to you and you'd like to ask it, go ahead and put it in the chat or raise your hand. We'll also have space at the end if there's something that you realize that you wanted to ask. So with that, I know we're going to pass it to the Kern County Agricultural Commissioner. I'm not sure if Glenn or Marlene are going to be the main person we pass it to right now, so I'll just leave it up to you. And thank you all for being here.
So we'll start with Glenn. At the last meeting, it was requested that I update our enforcement statistics for the AB 617 Arvin Lamont boundaries. So as an update, and the Air District has posted this on the website too. I put it in a letter form, so I'm just kind of going to summarize from that letter. So since the last time I updated, which would have been February of last year, my office has performed an additional 22 pesticide use monitoring inspections. And of these inspections, there were 3 that had violations that we later followed up with fines. And also during this same period of time, we had no pesticide drift incidents in the Arvin Lamont area. So as a summary of that, since February of 2020, which must be about the time that the Arvin Lamont 617 was established, I'm assuming. So since that time, which is a period of 38 months, this area has had no pesticide drift incidents, and we've performed 48 pesticide use monitoring inspections, and 8 of these 48 have shown violations that we followed up with fines on. And there was only one of these violations that resulted in a health effect, and that was when a resident illegally obtained a rodenticide fumigant, and he used it at his residence, and he and a couple of members of his family got sick, I believe. So if there are any questions about that, I'm willing to take any questions. And if not, also at the last meeting, people are getting tired of hearing from me because I don't know anything about my department. And so we thought it would be a better use of time for somebody to kind of get a snapshot of like a day in the life or an idea of what our inspectors do on a daily basis, and for specific incidents or for specific complaints that they get to deal with. So for that, I've got one of our senior inspectors, Marlene Reynoso, and she's going to be available for questions, but she's also going to kind of give an overview of what she would typically do if she's performing certain types of inspections in the field, and also what she would do if she's in charge of or deployed on a drift incident investigation. So Marlene, go ahead and take it away.
Right. Hello, my name is Marlene Reynoso, and I'm a senior agriculture biologist. So today I'll just go over, as Glenn said, a day in the life of an agriculture biologist in Kern County. Pretty much our day starts off 8 in the morning, and an agriculture biologist is assigned to be at what we call the pesticide use enforcement desk. So if we're that lucky individual, we stay in the office all day, we answer calls, but there's more to it. This is the phone is very important because this is where we receive information if something is going on out in the field that we need to be notified about, like complaints, maybe an episode, maybe a phone call, just a question asking, if this application is legal, if it's not, if it's too close to a house, if it's too close to a school. We get these kind of calls. So in the case of, an episode, if we do get a call about this, it always starts with a phone call. The agriculture biologist in charge of the desk that day will ask a multitude of questions, but we start with who's making this call and their name, their phone number in case the call gets disconnected. We ask what's going on. We ask, where are they located if it's an ongoing application? That's very important because as all this is happening, the biologist is on the phone, getting all this information, getting all these questions asked. Other biologists are in the office getting ready to head out. If it is an episode, the biologist at the desk needs to collect all this information, like contact information, maps. So in the office, we're getting all that. We're getting cross streets. We're getting specifics on what's going on. If there's individuals involved, if anybody's getting drifted on, it just all depends, right? Every call is specific to what's going on out on the field. So it's very important that the person who is at the desk gets all the information that's required. Yes. So, as we have the person at the desk, we're obtaining information like just if we're making a map, we're trying to get who's around, the cross streets, who's the grower, is it the grower making the application? Is it a pest control business making the application? What exactly is going on, right? So obviously sometimes the caller, it could be a field worker, it could be a resident. So they may not have all the information that we require, right? So we'll have maybe a second biologist stay back in the office, call neighboring growers within a mile radius of those cross streets that we're given. We're trying to ask these growers, are you making any application? What type of applications, right? The method of application is very important because maybe the caller, all he saw was a plane. So that's very important to us. Was it a plane? We ask things like, did you see machinery? Did you see air blast? Or what kind of equipment did you see? And so we'll get that information. So, the second biologist will relay this information to the grower, be like, what equipment we're using? And they'll let us know. And we'll also get information from the grower. Say we found out who the grower was, right? We get obviously their name, obviously the site of the location where they're making an application, the identity of the materials that they're applying, if they are applying anything that is EPA registered or that is a pesticide. We'll get things from them like rates. We'll get things like the exact date and time of the application. Maybe it was an ongoing application for the last 3 days. So that's very important to me as a biologist because that has a lot to do with, restricted entry intervals. So that's something we go on in depth later during the investigation. But as, the biologist is in the office, there's other biologists running out and heading to this location, right? So that's also very important. So we're all working as a team here. We have biologists go out in the field. If there is an ongoing application, we stop it. We'll do an inspection. The biologists always have like a second help. So we'll have people go to maybe even the person that made the call. Maybe if they're the person that got, if they did get drifted on, we want to talk to them. We want to talk to the resident, say they're concerned that the application is too close to their house. So a lot of things are happening at this time, especially when we're outside, right, on the field, because things change. So as we're out there, and with the guidance of our deputy, we'll get guidance if there's going to need the need for samples, right? So it's very important that before the biologist that leaves this office with a sample kit. So a sample kit pretty much is just what it sounds like, right? We're going to go out, we're going to take samples. So this kit is already prepared, so it's clean, and it's ready to be used to take samples for, to prove any type of drift if there was any. So this kit will go out with the biologist. But if we do need to take a swab sample, we do take a control. We need to, start off with a 0 amount of pesticide residue to prove that there was in fact something, if there is. But when we go out in the field, we do take sample kits. The sample kit can also be used to collect clothing. Say somebody says they got something drifted onto their person, we'll collect clothing samples. The next thing, so we're out in the field, if we do need to take any swab samples, obviously with the guidance of our deputy, obviously with the information that the biologist at the front desk has given me, we'll take all those considerations. Also, obviously we have obtained what materials have been applied. So we'll kind of know already what we're looking for, right? So we're collecting samples. Sometimes we also may need to collect foliage samples. So that's plant material. So we'll take samples of, of the area that was least likely to be contaminated, and we'll work our way forward into the most contaminated area. So, really, why are samples important, you might ask yourself? So samples are very important. So they play a role in our investigations because it'll, if a positive swab sample comes up, it supports that there was evidence of drift, right? If we do have a clothing sample that comes back positive, that supports that the drift there was drift onto a person. So that's serious. Positive foliage samples, that supports evidence, that there was a drift onto crop that shouldn't have got applied, right? So it could eventually maybe affect, crop. There could be crop damage. So it's very important that we do, obtain the information as soon as possible. The desk is very important because that's where we get all our info, and that biologist will, relay this information to the biologist that goes on the field. And all that is used as evidence along with the interview, the original call that we get. That's part of our investigation, the original phone call, labels, maps. If we do get any medical authorization forms, that's also part of it. Sample analysis results, and then further headquarters inspections if there needs to be any. And there usually is always a headquarters inspection. That's just what we do. So that's all part of the investigation. All right, do you guys have any questions for me? I know that was pretty fast and all over the place, but that's really how it is. When we do get any questions on, is this application safe, or, there's an episode, and then I'll go a little bit more in depth on inspections. But do you guys have any questions on this?
It looks like Bianca has a question, if that's all right, Marlene.
Yeah.
I have a question in regards to the way you inspect. Is it everything that you do is on business hours, or is it after hours? Is there somebody that, just in case if it's not in business hours, you're able to have a biologist on call and things like that?
So we're not 24 hours, but I have worked on my weekends to collect samples. I have worked after 5 to collect samples and finish all that, but we usually just work 8 to 5 if we need to go over, or if, because we do work weekends. If I'm the lucky one who's working that weekend and something happens on my weekend, then I have to handle it. Obviously 8 to 5 are our hours.
And another follow-up question that I do have, if there's an illegal application that is being done, do you test on restricted materials or any type of materials that could be drifted into maybe a crew or maybe an individual or a home? How do you test that? And what is your measurement on what drift is counted on? Is it just a little dab of drift, or is it a certain, like a t-shirt? What's your measurement of measuring if there is an initial drift to an individual?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Yeah, so we'll test for whatever's in the tank. It doesn't matter if it's restricted. It doesn't matter if it's California restricted. We test for an EPA registered, California registered material. And then for your other question, you know, how little do they need to be to have drifted on? We go into the parts per million. So it's pretty small amount. So if there's anything above a 0, it's a drift.
And do
Yeah.
you do inspections in the schools? I'm sorry, I just have a couple questions.
It's okay. What do you mean inspections in schools?
Yes, because as you notice, Arvin and Lamont is surrounded by agriculture. There's a lot of schools that are adjacent to a lot of these fields. Do you sometimes go and test maybe the playground? So if there's any potential drift that could happen in the school, so parents could be notified?
We go off of, so if we get an incident, if we get an episode, if we get a call, that's where we go off of. We don't just go to a school and knock on their door and go swab playgrounds. If something's going on, we get a call. We've got calls from schools, you know, they're concerned, the application's happening, you know, next door. We go out there, we start making calls. If there is an allegation of drift, you know, obviously with the information that's given to us and with the guidance of the deputy, you know, he'll determine if samples do need to be taken.
I have a follow-up after that. So I've had a couple members give a call to the ag commissioner of potential drift in the area. He lives right in front of this of a school, and it's right adjacent to his home. And there's been a couple incidents where he's been seeing the aircraft in the area. Usually by this time they rotate some of the crops, things like that. And we've seen the changes, but that I've known, because my child goes to that school, we haven't had any notices from the ag commissioner coming to the parents or the principal to even inform the parents that there was a potential drift and kids getting sick, just to notify the school or anything. In those circumstances, what would you do? Because we don't get notified. The ag commissioner knows about the drift incidents. Do you guys provide that information for the school? Even it's in a close proximity, it's right across the street. So my question is, do you notify the school, or you just wait until the school reaches out to you?
I don't think I quite understand, but Glenn, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I don't quite understand either. Can you better formulate a question?
And maybe Bianca, what I heard was when there's application ahead of time, prior to anyone calling and saying, I suspect a drift, you're asking if there's like notification to the school, if there's a nearby application, and how does that information get to the parents? Is that what you're asking?
No, my question is, so I've had a resident that has in the past reached out to the ag commissioner about incidents that have happened. He's seen the aircraft happening. There's been cases open, but they don't notify the school. And where the incident usually happens is right adjacent to the school. Us as parents, we don't get notified. We the ag commissioner's office has told the resident that it was just honey water because of the bees. I've seen throughout the year that they changed crops in that field. We don't get notified if it's being fumigated or not. My question is, do you guys inform the school if you guys are if the farmer is adjacent from the school? does it notify the principal, or who does the farmer can notify? Because children are coming in and out of school, and they do have sporting events, they do have after school things like that that could potentially affect the children.
So there are several issues that you're trying to hit on here. There's no notification requirements for schools as long as they're away a certain distance, depending on the material. We don't get notified ahead of time for non-restricted materials, so we wouldn't be able to notify the school. In the situation that you specified, if it was sugar water or honey that you said, that's not a pesticide application, so there would theoretically be no danger that would require notification. So the episodes that you're speaking of, if we get a call and it's just you know, hey, there's an aerial application that's occurring by the school, and they're just they're not claiming that there's drift, they're just saying they're worried about it. That's not something that we would call the school to tell them about, because there's no allegation that there's any drift involved. Now, if it's an emergent situation and people are seeing material that's drifting on the school, then the fire department gets involved and they stop the application. And if we were involved, we would stop the application as well. But I don't think those are the situations that you're referring to. So I think I kind of wanted to get Marlene to kind of say what she looks for when she's out doing pesticide use monitoring surveillance, in case she does an inspection there. So Marlene, why don't you go ahead and give a quick overview of that?
Yes, so a pesticide use enforcement inspection is, you know, a validus. We go out in the field. If we come across a pesticide application, really at the, when we're driving out there, we don't know if it's an actual pesticide application, right? We don't know until we stop the machinery and the guy driving this machinery, right? We'll stop them, obviously in a safe manner. We'll wait until they see us. They'll shut off their equipment, and we'll go up to them and ask, introduce who we are. We'll let them know what we're, looking at. If I'm looking for the labels, I want to know what he's applying. In some cases, it's just a fertilizer, right? So in that case, if the fertilizer does not have an EPA registered number to it, then I don't do an inspection because there's no pesticide. But if there is a pesticide in the tank, I ask, who the grower is, what exactly are they applying? If there's anything else in the tank, like an adjuvant, I'll ask for, to see their PPE. Obviously, if they're in a cab that's closed, I'm trying to, have them come out. Obviously, they're out of the field, so they come out. I make sure that they have all their PPE that's required by the pesticide labels. If they are applying any pesticides, I'll, ask to see their decontamination kit facility if it's nearby. But if they have the kit with them, which is, already equipped with enough water for them to decontaminate, soap, single-use paper towels, I looked that they also have the emergency care information posted, that it's, visibly not damaged by the sun, that they know exactly where to go if something does happen, if they do get any pesticide on them, on their person, in their eye, who do they contact? I ask these questions. It's very important because, things happen, they're on the field. Sometimes, there's only two guys out there making an application. So we want to make sure that these applicators know where they need to go in case of an emergency. We also ask, how, where did you mix? We look around, we look at, what's nearby. We look at, obviously, at the machinery, that it's not, leaking, causing any type of hazard. If there are any, structures nearby, if there's houses, if there's schools, if there's parks, we look around. We go through our inspection. If there's no violations, then, they can continue. If there's anything wrong, we stop the application. They need to fix what's going on. Say if they're missing PPE, they need to get PPE. They're still going to get violations, but I won't leave until they're fully equipped with their PPE. Obviously, if it's an application that's just everything's wrong, you know, maybe the equipment's leaking, maybe they don't even have PPE, maybe this guy says he's not even trained. We stop it, we talk to a supervisor, and that's that. All right, and there's violations. So that's usually what pest control, a pest inspection, how it goes if we do stop them out on the field. Do you have any questions on that, anybody?
Thank you, Marlene. I see Maria has her hand up, and then I also have a question in the chat we'll get to after we hear Maria or Roberto's question.
Sí, buenas tardes.
Yes, good afternoon. Only have a few questions. The pesticides, my questions is, are the pesticides are allowed to apply during the weekends? There are materials that can be applied. And obviously the people in these properties, they have the right to plant anything they want and they can apply the pesticides. And some of them, they have to have certain hours to start that application because they have to finish before certain time. So it's very specific, those materials that they're using. Usually the material that is not restricted in California, we can say that the majority can be applied depending on what the label says.
Sábado o el domingo,
So they
¿verdad?
can be applied Saturday or Sunday, right? Yes, the label will let you know how or what temperature and the restrictions with the temperature, or obviously if it's night or day. But if it's not saying anything that cannot be done during the weekend. And how do you notice if the ranchers are applying these pesticides that are regulated in during Saturday and Sunday? And how will you know if this rancher is applying a pesticide that is really bad for the health Saturday or Sunday? Well, like I said before, when we were talking, we work sometimes Saturday and Sunday. Sometimes we have to work and we have the rounds in the fields. And if we see an application, we stop them, we inspect them, we monitor them. And at that moment, that's when we see that they're applying something. During other moments, we're not going to be there all the time. And they report the use of materials. They have to do a report of what they're using and they're sending it monthly. And if it's a business for pest control, they will have to send a document with a notification of the use. And it has to be 7 days after finishing that job. So at the office in the ag commissioner, you have staff. If we have an emergency, let's give an example. If you have an emergency Saturday or Sunday, can I call your office? And we have staff that's gonna be able to help me at that moment. Or they're gonna tell me, you know what, we're gonna check that on Monday. No, if you call us, let's say Saturday night, because we work Saturday and Sunday, but it depends on the hour that the biologist is there. So if you call Saturday night, we are gonna take the message on Sunday. And on Sunday, it's when, depending on the situation, they will let us know if we have to go that Sunday to do research or to see what happened, depending the incident. But if the problem is Saturday morning, early in the morning, do you have staff Saturday morning to be able to check that? It's one person, a biologist is the one that is assigned that Saturday and that Sunday, and it's just one person. But if we need more people, the deputy will let us know that we have another person, but usually it's only one person Saturday and Sunday. So, well, for me, if we have an emergency of what you're saying, it could be that maybe they don't have a biologist, and then they will probably have to wait. And in case of an emergency, you have to call 911 first, and they will help you with environmental protection.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Marlene. And thank you, Maria, for your questions. I do see one. Ooh, I lost it. I saw, oh, Cesar put in the chat, Marlene, if you can help us, what is done when a non-restricted material drifts?
What is done when a non-restricted material is drifted? So we treat all of them the same. I mean, with the same importance. You know, if anybody is drifted on, we make the investigation. We don't take precedence over is it restricted, is it not? Obviously, some materials have more restrictions and maybe more, codes are more restricted on it. But if it's drifted on a person, it's the same codes that protect and that we use to, move forward with the investigation. Do you want to add to that, Glenn?
Yeah, I mean, Marlene described it perfectly. It doesn't matter what the material is. You're not allowed to drift any material, any pesticide off of the application site. So we treat every material is equal.
Thank you. I do see some other just kind of comments and back and forth in the chat, but I do want to acknowledge the time. And it's, I think to Michelle, who's from the California Air Resources Board, she put something in the chat that I think is really related to our next topic, which is DPR's oversight over pesticide application and enforcement. So if I may, unless there's other questions right now for Marlene or Glenn, I'm going to pass it to DPR. So maybe I'll pause for a second, see if there's any last questions before we go to DPR, which is still about enforcement. So we're still on the same topic. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and pass to DPR. Brandy, you let us know when you want us to share the screen. Eric will share the slides and then we'll get going.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I do want to say, because how Michelle had put that in the chat, I mean, this is it in hard copy. So this is our volume 4. It's our enforcement compendium for inspections. And so this is not only what we use in the enforcement branch, but we train all of our county ag commissioner offices, their pesticide use enforcement staff on volume 4. I also have volume 5, which is for investigations. So we go over so many things, which I'll make sure that we cover it. I just know we don't have a lot of time. So Jose and I are more than happy to answer questions later too. And there weren't any more questions for Kern's staff, correct? We were okay to move to us.
It sounds like for now, and I'll just offer for folks, if you have other questions for the, oh, go ahead.
In the chat. I just wanted to ask the ag commissioner if he would help make these notifications a reality. It's something that people in the committees have wanted for a very long time, and he's the backstop. So if we could get his word that he's willing to commit, I think that would mean a lot.
When DPR and the state finish their regulations and their program for notification, that's when we will do it along with everyone else.
So I am good. Just
I think the only reason that we have to wait for that program is because you refused to play ball in the first place. So if we could just do it, because you are the backstop, you do have leading authority. I think it would be a good show of, respect to the community that have been asking for it for a while instead of being forced to do it.
So if I'm just gonna, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like Cesar is asking the ag commissioner about pesticide notifications. I know this has come up a lot, and I know that the commitment that is in the CERP includes the DPR commitment to have a statewide notification system. And from my understanding, that's certainly in the works, and we can maybe ask for an update on that soon, so we know the timeline, Cesar, so we know kind of what that time frame would look like not only for obviously Kern County, but for the state. So I'm definitely going to note that as an action item for everyone to hear just what's going on across the state for notifications regardless.
Okay, so I'm good, Jessica, whenever you and Eric want to start sharing.
We'll start to share, and I just want everyone to know that I see Bianca's hand, so maybe I'll let Bianca, just before we go, Brandy, I'll let Bianca ask her question and then notes for everyone just to that I have pesticide notification updates as one of the updates for next time. Go ahead, Bianca.
I don't know if it was part of the agenda. I missed the action item piece, but I had requested in our agenda setting to do a pesticide notification as one of the action items. I did wanted to address now that we do have the ag commissioner. As Cesar mentioned, we've been requesting this from the ag commissioner for a while. We even have money allocated to create a notification piece in the area. And it's from the Shafter community, but as we're joining efforts with Shafter folks, there's money already in for notification, specifically on notification piece, and CARB is match funding what we have in the table. Our request has been just to do the notification here as he has it implemented as a grower to grower notification. We don't want nothing more, nothing less. It's already a process that's been working at the moment in the Kern County area, as the ag commissioner mentioned. There hasn't been any drift happening because of that. As at the beginning, when Glenn started, there was a couple incidents that happened, and that's when he created the grower to grower notification. It's something very easy, something that could be public, just public for the residents that have been in the area. We're not requesting nothing more than what it is. And if we have DPR in the mix, and we have the air district working with us, why can't we have the ag commissioner working in this piece? I know that DPR is looking for the second round of communities to pilot the notification. So it's just something to look at, and also analyze it, that we've been requesting it for a while, and residents have been advocating for this. And if we have our key player, which is the ag commissioner, working with us in making this possible, then we're gonna be at a good works with the ag commissioner, because at the moment we've only heard that until the state makes it regulatory, he'll enforce it. And we're not asking, this is the reason why we have this whole process of the statewide, because the Kern County Ag Commissioner did not want to participate to become the notificational piece. So this is where, as Cesar mentioned, the ball's in your player, and we just want you to work with us. So I just have that comment, and also to address that there is money allocated for notification at the moment.
I think we have an opportunity here to hear from my inspectors about the work that they're doing, as well as DPR's inspectors and what they do and their oversight. And that's kind of the purpose, I think, of this meeting. I've been on every pesticide subcommittee meeting that we've had, and those are the opportunities to bring this kind of thing up. But that being said, I'll quickly say that my position has not changed. I've made it very clear. I'm not going to do notification in Kern County until the state completes their notification for the whole state. Once they implement that, we will have notification in Kern County.
All right, Bianca, thank you, and Cesar. Like I said, we're noting, and to, I think both your points with Glenn, you know, we have him here at the table. We have DPR, who is working on that notification regulation here at the table every meeting. And so we can prioritize maybe an update on that process, including, you know, it sounds like whenever anyone has to implement it, that's when Kern County would implement it as well. So maybe just including a timeline on when that we will see that. Gustavo Senior, is this kind of on the related topic of pesticide notification? And do you mind maybe if we take it at the end for open floor? So that way we can at least get through the enforcement piece. Go ahead and unmute and see if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, I can share at the end.
Thank you. And we'll definitely make sure to save some time. So we'll make sure to save time to have a discussion about this, continue this, but I definitely want to thank folks from DPR for being here for the enforcement regulation piece of it. I'm noting that we'll save some time to talk about notification at the end. And I've also noted an action item for next month, for next meeting, I should say. All right, Brandy, thank you so much for your patience.
No, of course, Jessica. So first of all, because I don't think we got to do introductions earlier, but my name is Brandy Martin. I work for Department of Pesticide Regulation out of our Clovis office. I am the manager here for this office. There's 13 of us, and I'll go into that and what we cover. But I also want to be able to introduce my right-hand person, who's the supervisor here in our Clovis office, and that's Jose Bueno. So he's also on the call and he's going to be presenting as well. So, and he'll show his camera, turn his camera on in a minute. So what we were asked, and hopefully this is what you guys are looking for, was to do an overview of the enforcement work that we do here out of our regional offices. So if there's anything else that comes up later on, we're more than happy to present further, but just kind of to show you guys the different work that we do out of our office. So go ahead, next slide, please. I know we don't have a lot of time and I wasn't sure how much time we'd have. So I just wanted everyone on the call to see our map. And so, as I mentioned, we're in the Clovis office here, Jose and I are. And so we call our office CRO. It's the Central Regional Office, but there's also a Northern Regional Office, and you can see all of the counties that are marked under NRO. And there's also our Southern Regional Office. So NRO's office is located in Rancho Cordova, and SRO's office is in Santa Ana. And so you can see all of our contact information there. I'm so sorry. I know it wasn't the best zoomed in picture, but you can definitely get this on our website under the enforcement section on our DPR page. But you can see our direct contact information there, our email addresses, and our phone numbers. But just so that you guys know that the 3 regional offices for the enforcement branch do work with every single county ag commissioner office in California. And we have staff that work with their ag inspectors individually. So next slide, please. Thank you. So this is where I'm going to have Jose go into talking about the 3 different programs that we have under the enforcement regional offices. And it's the same throughout our 3 ROs. So go ahead, Jose.
Thank you. Like Brandy mentioned, it's the same through the 3 regional offices throughout the state, the Northern, Southern, and Central, which we are part of, and so is Kern County. But basically the enforcement branch regional offices responsibilities include to enforce the laws and regulations pertaining to proper and safe use of pesticides. It could be federal laws, it could be state. We kind of work under both of them, and some depending the program. And we do have 3 programs here. One of them is oversight of the County Ag Commissioner's Pesticide Use Enforcement Program. We work with the County Ag Commissioners to basically in their pesticide use work enforcement program. Another program that we have is the California Pesticide Residue Monitoring Program, and we'll go into some more detail about that. And the 3rd program is the Product Compliance Program. All those programs are, like Brandy said, we have 13 staff here, and they work in one type or another in all those 3 programs. And as far as the California Pesticide Residue Monitoring Program, there was a press release that the 2021 pesticide residue report was available, and I put that in the chat. If anyone wants to look at that, that's the press release, and you can find the report from there.
Thanks, Jose. So, and really, we want to show everyone the 3 different programs because they're not only under enforcement, but we also work with the county ag departments on these programs. We really, we're at the state level. We work with US EPA at the federal level, and we work with all of our county ag commissioner offices at the county level. But we also work with other agencies under Cal EPA, and our branch works with pretty much every single other branch in DPR because we work with registration on labels. We work with medical toxicology, which is, we call them HHA, so it's Human Health Assessment Branch. We work with them on risk assessment. So, I mean, we cover a lot of areas. We work with environmental monitoring branch all the time. So we work very closely with Men and his team, Maziar on air monitoring, and Yella. So people that you definitely have already worked with, we work with them a lot on buffer zones and retention testing. There's so many things that we're involved in. So we're definitely the one of the boots on the ground branches for enforcement. So let me go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and go over the first program that Jose mentioned, which is, I think, the one that the group is the most interested in, and that is the work that we do with the county ag commissioner offices. So as I think that you're aware, we definitely do oversight work. So we make sure that all of our county ag commissioner offices are that they know all of our food and ag code, that they know our California code of regulations. There's so many different things that we go over with them so that they can inspect industry correctly. So we even have federal code that we use, which is FIFRA. So that's the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, Rodenticide Act. Sorry, if you ever want any of this information, we can send it to you. But also the Code of Federal Regulations. So there's so many things that we have jurisdiction over, and then we make sure that the counties with what they cover, that they're doing it correctly. So we have a great working relationship with our counties, including Kern County. They've been really great for us to work with, but not only Kern, but throughout the state of California. We have 58 counties. You probably already know that. But in regards to commissioner offices, there are 55. And there's 55 because some of our counties, there isn't enough of the type of work that the county ag commissioner covers. There isn't enough work on their own. So we have Enyomono together. We have a couple of our northern counties that are together. And so there's just one commissioner for some of the counties that are combined, where they're overseen by the county agricultural commissioner and their staff. So the things though that we oversee at the commissioner level are inspections. So I know there was several questions when it came to inspections, and I really just wanted the group to know that all of those inspections that the counties do, we also do at the same time. So when Jose and when our staff goes out to do oversight inspections, which are done every month, multiple times each month, even during COVID, our staff was still out doing all of their essential work in all of our 3 programs. But for the county work, they were still out overseeing them on all of these on the slide. But when it comes to inspections, they're doing the same inspection that the county ag inspector's doing. So there's an electronic program that we use and that our counties use, but we still have, all of the actual inspection sheets too, if we need them. So how I mentioned earlier that our jurisdiction is over the Food and Ag Code and the California Code of Regulation. We do Business and Professions Code. I mean, so many. The one that's probably the smallest for us is the Education Code, which I think someone asked about how much inspection work is done at the schools. The Healthy Schools Act it's a small portion that's under us on the enforcement side and the county side. That's more with IPM. But all of those laws and regulations are on the forms. So when the county goes out and we go out, we are doing side-by-side inspections. It's we do pull back a little bit and watch them as they're connecting with the applicator or the mix and load, the mix and loader, or if someone's clearing the structure of a house, because the county also inspects all the structural pest control uses. So if you have your house tented, so you have an issue with termites or cockroaches, they cover the structural pest control companies because we work with the structural pest control board on those. So there's so many areas. I mean, it's everywhere from field worker safety inspections to pesticide use monitoring, like Glenn and Marlene mentioned, to all the different structural inspections and audits. So audits on growers, on pest control dealers that sell the products, on pest control advisors that make the recommendations to use certain products. So my staff is doing ride-alongs with those ag inspectors to make sure that they're asking all the right questions, that they're making sure that they're educating our industry on all those laws and regs, and just really, covering all of the requirements. So, and it's really so that the more that we educate industry, the less investigations that the counties will have. I do have to say, statewide, over 70% of our illness inspections, or excuse me, illness investigations that come through Worker Health and Safety's branch, over 70% of them are antimicrobial uses, whether it's home use where there was an incident or at a facility. So there's a very large amount that is actually not ag related. But when it comes to investigations, we work with the counties from the very beginning, whether it's a priority investigation, which there's certain criteria, and we can always share that with you of what is deemed a priority investigation, and then a non-priority. So they work with us from the very beginning. Kern is actually one of the counties that will call us right away when they hear of a drift incident or a bee kill. I mean, it's really anything. They work with our staff right away. And there is as you can see on the slide, we call them an EBL, Enforcement Branch Liaison, that is assigned to each of our counties. In our region here, we have 14 counties that we work with, that we oversee their pesticide use enforcement program. And so one of our staff is officially assigned to Kern. And so he works with them from the very beginning, what type of samples they should take, whether it's foliage samples, clothing samples, swab samples, what type of pattern to do. And a lot of that also is in that volume 5, which I know we can send you these as links as well. We also assist them with investigations, and we definitely assist them on weekends. So I know there was some concern that was brought up by Bianca, I think, on working Saturdays or Sundays. If there is an emergency situation, or if there's a possible illness, an illness concern, first responders are always notified right away. If there isn't contact made by the county, through the county right away, it is definitely through like how Glenn mentioned, the fire department, environmental health, hazmat. So it depends upon how quickly that they can get out there and assist with decontamination. But then the county is always contacted as well. Normally that's through the commissioner that's contacted, or the deputy. And then on our end, that's Jose and I that are contacted. So we have state cell phones that are with us throughout, throughout Saturday and Sunday as well. And yes, Bianca, I just saw your message in the chat. Caspir is definitely still working. Our counties receive those complaints or those concerns directly through an electronic system that both of our agencies use. It's called CalPEATS. So they're notified through, I believe it's an email. Glenn and Marlene, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, of how you're notified. But we're always, I feel like, especially in our region with how many, how much production ag we have, just how busy that our counties are with their programs. I feel like everyone is always really good at being able to get a hold of. So, but we also receive incidents through PIRs. So pesticide incident reports come through California Poison Control. So that's why we and the counties are always trying to educate our community members, our field workers on going to receive medical care, because if they receive medical care and it is connected to a pesticide incident, then California Poison Control will be contacted by the hospital or by urgent care or clinic, and then that goes to our worker health and safety branch and then to us. So Jose and I get those every single time that they are submitted through California Poison Control. We also get complaints and concerns through our Cal EPA complaint tracking system, which is through Brian Hughes, our lead investigator. So we really have, and he's also an enforcement. We have so many different people making sure to connect the dots. But we receive a lot of great information through Kern and our other San Joaquin Valley counties, so that we can assist them, so that they can, do the right sampling and do the right the write-up, because we also train them and work with them on writing up the investigation correctly and completely. I'm trying to think of what else that I should say in this. Let's see. Okay, and Bianca, okay, I saw it. She just asked about customer. Okay, and I'm trying to think. Oh, investigations on the priority side. So everything is treated the same with us, with the seriousness of it. But on the priority investigation side, we also work with the county on additional paperwork. So we require updates as they're going through when it's a priority investigation. So we get a notification sent out within 24 hours. And then they also give us an update within 15 days. So, and US EPA works with us on this a lot too, when it comes to priority investigations. On the permit record review portion that we put here on the slide, when it comes to restricted materials, those require permits. And so, anyone that falls under being able to get a restricted material permit through the county, our staff here at CRO reviews those restricted material permits after they're done, but we also have our staff during permit season go and make sure that they're shadowing the ag inspectors as they're doing the permits. So, and we do those records reviews every year, and those help us also with completing a report that we do for our counties every 3 years. So the information on those reports have information over the last 3 years. So the Glenn knows this very well, and his work plans are always very good. That they also issue a work plan to us of what work they're going to do in their enforcement program for the next 3 years. So thank you, Michelle. I saw that she just posted in the chat the information for that. We also fully oversee the compliance actions that they do. So those are decision reports. Jose and I look through every single one of those. We are responsible for either accepting them or rejecting them, which is all connected to our California Code of Regulations, and also enforcement actions. Those are normally the notice of proposed actions that Glenn and his team will fully work on connected to the investigation and the violations. And we look through all of those as well. And I mean, we work with our counties on all of this. There's a lot of back and forth communication. There's very much a feel that we get here in our office that the commissioners and their staff care about getting things right, making sure that everything is done correctly. And that does show up in their evaluation report that I mentioned earlier. So are there any questions before I move on? Sorry, everyone.
No worries, Brandy. You're being super thorough. I think everyone really appreciates it. I just want to do a quick time check. We do have a hard stop at 5:30. And so definitely keep encouraging folks. I think putting questions in the chat has been really helpful because it seems like folks are able to answer it while Brandy's presenting, if that works for everyone.
Thank you, Jessica. And a couple of things that we also do, I just didn't put in here, is we do trainings for our county ag staff throughout the year. We do trainings for industry, and that's not just ag industry, it's also structural industry. So there's so many other things that we do. We sit in throughout the year. Our staff sits in on a lot of different environmental justice meetings. I know I saw Cesar Aguirre on here, so we definitely have worked with Gustavo in the past and now work with Cesar Aguirre Jr. On the current Arvin meetings. So we were very connected and try to make sure that we go to all the community events and workshops. And with Celia Pazos, our new EJ Assistant Director on board, we definitely have been working with her to make sure that we're connected. So if there's anything else though, later on, let me know, but I'll go ahead and pass it over to Jose for the food safety part. Thank you.
Okay, part of another responsibility that staff here at the office is in charge of and does, including all the other 2 regions, is the California Pesticide Residue Monitoring Program. That's a monitoring program and also an enforcement program where we actually enforce the laws. We monitor to ensure that produce California buy is free of illegal pesticide residues. The 2021 report that I provided a link to, basically in 2021, 3,444 produce samples were collected from 500 locations throughout California. Those locations could be a farmer's market, a chain distribution center, a wholesale facility. We do a lot of sampling in retail locations, farmers markets, roadside stands. We collect samples from all over California throughout the 3 regions. And if you look through the report, also the press release, as far as the produce that had illegal residues, 77% of those actually were imported produce. So, that kind of gives you an idea. Now, how it ties in with the county ag commissioners, they assisted DPR with 22 investigations of California grown produce. So, that's how the commissioners get involved. It's part, of their investigation. They have to find out what exactly happened. We also have a repeat residue offender program. And that program is basically set up for if someone has 3, we call them tolerance cases. If a distributor, wholesaler, doesn't matter if they grew it or not, if they have 3 illegal residues from their facility and they are the first sale in California, it doesn't matter if it's a wholesaler who purchased from a different country, they become responsible. So if we find in the channels of trade 3 illegal residues for them within a year, or 1 case that's considered a potential human health concern, they fall into the repeat residue offender program, which we meet with them, kind of have a compliance meeting with them, find out what procedures are going to do to prevent them, and we monitor them closely to verify that they are doing what they're supposed to and not selling produce with illegal residues. Now in 2021, part of the enforcement part is issuing quarantine notices. So as far as the enforcement branches, between all 3 of them, 120 quarantine notices were issued, and the disposal of 70,000 pounds of produce was performed. That's 70,000 pounds. And When we find it in channels of trade, we perform trace backs to find out who was the first one into California. And depending on the case, we also do a trace forward to find out where did this product go to. And I guess next slide, unless you have something to add, Brandy.
Thanks, Jose. I think it was just that even during the time of the pandemic, our team was still fully out there multiple days a week collecting food safety samples. And I think Cesar had asked a question earlier about sampling and the analysis. And I apologize if it wasn't Cesar, but all of our food safety samples and all of the county's investigative samples are run through one of two labs that we contract with, which are through CDFA. So California Department of Food and Agriculture has a residue lab that we utilize in Sacramento and one in Anaheim. And so their equipment is state of the art to run clothing, swabs, foliage, really anything. And and that they can detect down to parts per billion, but there's different units based upon if it's clothing or swabs or foliage, but it's very high tech. And so that's what they run it through. And they even do run it a second time just to confirm that it's correct. I do want the group to know too, though, that the lab can run for almost 600 active ingredients. I think it's around there, 600 active ingredients, but they cannot run for adjuvants. So adjuvants are your oils, your spreader sticker materials that are put in the tank with the herbicide or the insecticide. But since they're oils, because they're really meant to just help the pesticide stick, since they're oils, they cannot be run in the equipment at our CDFA labs. So they'll completely destroy the equipment. Okay. Thank you, Jose. Okay, so product compliance, the last slide. So product compliance is our third program. And so it's this one, I just really wanted to highlight how much that Kern County Ag Department helped us with this. So I'm not sure if some of you have seen this at the Kern County swap meet or any of the flea markets in Kern County. We have definitely seen it in multiple counties. There's a certain product, it's called Crazy Killer Cockroach Powder. I can send you pictures of it, but we have seen it out in different counties at different locations. And so that's one of the things that we had our staff work with Kern County on last year and the year before to do an undercover buy. So I think there was 7 or 8 vendors that Kern County was able to help us with to do undercover buys to get these unregistered illegal products out of the marketplace. Because we have had pesticide incident reports come through our office and county offices that are connected to the sale of these products, the sale and use, because the vendors will tell them, okay, sorry, I'm distracted. I'm seeing the other conversation in the chat. So it looks, what we end up finding is that the vendors will tell the community members that they can use these products on their couch, in their bed, on their baby's crib. And those are the incidents that we end up getting connected to these pesticides. And so I brought it up in every Arvin group that we have. So Kern, Fresno, Tulare, Kings, who am I missing? Sorry. So all of our Arvin groups and then the Kings SJV lead. And to see if there's any way that the community can help us with educating the community members out there. And so, but Kern County and their DA's office helped us with getting these products out of the Kern swap meets. And now we're working with our legal team on working with the management of each of the swap meets and flea markets that our staff has gone out to and found these unregistered cockroach products. But yes, this program really is to look for misbranded pesticide products at places that you guys probably shop at, like Lowe's, Home Depot, any of your mom and pop stores, and then also to pull anything that's unregistered. So, okay. Any questions on any of our 3 programs, any of the work that we do? Okay. Thank you very much. Let Jessica or Eric know if there's any of our documentation that you need that we work with our counties on, or any other programs. And that's just our contact information. So if you have any questions for Jose or myself, we're in the office all the time. And so is our team. They're in and out doing all the different work. And so thank you so much for giving us the time to share our programs with you.
Thank you, Brandy. That was a lot of information, but I really appreciate, I know folks really appreciated and were engaged and had some great questions for you. It's possible they have follow-up questions after kind of like hearing all this. And so I know that you shared your contact information. I'll just encourage folks either to reach out to Brandy, reach out to myself. You have contact information for other DPR folks as well. We'll definitely make sure that their questions get answered. And yes, Brandy, to your point, there was sort of a few other questions popping up in the chat. So I'm going to address those really quickly in a moment because it sort of wraps us up. Are there any last questions for DPR about DPR's programs before I move us on? Awesome. All right, so I want to acknowledge a couple things that have been happening in the chat. We did have a question. Oh, Gustavo, I think there we go. Thank you. So one of the questions that came up earlier, we did have Gustavo raise his hand and was wanting to comment about buffer zone improvements and making sure that's something we could talk about at an upcoming meeting. And so the ag commissioner is always, he's come to every one of these meetings. One of the things I know that we like, and I know that Glenn has expressed that he also appreciates, if you have specific questions, of course, saying the topic is one thing, but if you have other specific questions, I know that Glenn and his team have been really great about responding, as you saw today, with a very specific letter addressing every question that you have. We've had that in the past with DPR and CARB and the ag commissioner's office. So what I'll just say is we'll send a follow-up email talking about our upcoming topics for this meeting and also soliciting from you all or from folks that couldn't make it today, maybe some of the questions you have, and then we'll pass those along to CARB or DPR or of course the ag commissioner's office, depending on who they relate to. And that way we can be prepared for next meeting with those specific answers. So I'm just pausing to see if that works for folks. With really all the topics being about exposure. So we'll have an update on notification, and we'll also just kind of address any other mitigation efforts like buffer zones, just because that was one of the questions here in the chat. Awesome. Great. Well, I so appreciate it. We'll definitely move on. I'm going to share my screen once more. Just to remind folks when our next meeting is. Oops, 1 second. All right, so hopefully folks are seeing my screen. Our next meeting is July 25th at 4 p.m. Of course, it will be on Zoom, which is how we've been doing all these subcommittee meetings. They've all been an hour and a half long, which sounds like today we definitely needed it. And so we'll continue that process where it will end at 5:30. Like I said, we will follow up with you all about the actions from today and make sure that we really craft an agenda as well as some specific answers for you based on the questions that you might all have. All right. Are there any final comments before I just kind of close this out and thank our presenters?
I do just want to ask, when it comes to the Kern Ivan and the Arvin Lamont subcommittee, because I know with Alfonso, who's the EBL for Kern, he sits in on those meetings monthly, and there has not been anything pesticide related brought up. I think in over a year. There was one, but it was a fertilizer application, so it wasn't pesticide related. So I just want to make sure that everything that the group is seeing in, when it comes to concerns for pesticides, if that's getting communicated over to the group, because that group is all regulators. So it would be really good to know if there are concerns that aren't being addressed at the Kern Ivan.
I don't know if Cesar is still on the call and can address that. I don't know. I don't see him.
I see Gustavo is, but I'm not sure, because I know Cesar Jr.'s running that.
Yeah.
Okay, I just was.
Well, no, that's a great point, Brandy, and definitely something we're really cognizant of is there are a lot of overlapping, but not necessarily fully overlapping efforts, and we want to make sure everyone has the right information. And so what I'll note that as well, not only to follow up with Cesar, who we have regular meetings with since he's a co-lead, but also to note for ourselves to encourage folks, or to make sure that if we're hearing the complaint, maybe we're funneling it to the right folks. So that's just a really great point, Brandy. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I just really want to thank all of you for being here. We do have another subcommittee meeting tomorrow. This is about oil and gas efforts, another very interagency collaborative effort. So thank you for your extra time this week. I want to thank Glenn and Marlene from the Kern County Ag Commissioner's Office. I want to thank Brandy and Jose from DPR. I want to thank all the other DPR kind of support staff that are here, as well as CARB, and then Michelle, your liaison from CARB, for being just a great resource and dropping a lot of things in the chat. Like I said, I will see probably a lot of you hopefully tomorrow. But if not, I'll see you all at our next CSC meeting at the end of June. So thank you all so much for your time, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.